Welcome back to the Raised Hunting Podcast, everyone, and you guys have done extraordinarily well in following direction. We've asked for you guys to give us some reviews. We've asked for you guys to share our podcast with your friends. You've been doing that, but there's some of you out there that are bad, and I'm going to pick on you. Some of you are listening to the podcast, but you haven't followed it. Shame on you. If you can't see me right now, I'm rubbing one finger on the other because you're a bad person.
You're going on the naughty list this year.
That's right. Hold on. But I want to give a shout out to Heather Ashner, which could be Heather actually, or it could be Heather's other half. I won't say better half because but some guys sometimes use their wives' accounts. But Heather wrote in a review and then also just kind of told us what she was looking for and thought that the podcast was doing a really good job and gave us some insight. So we love that. We sure appreciate people, whether that's Heather actually or Heather's other half. So
and we would reply to you guys on the podcast on Apple and on Spotify, but we don't know how. So we're just going to tell you here because
we're learning as we go.
I've tried figuring out like people like you can reply to our podcast topics on Spotify.
How?
I didn't know because all of a sudden I was like, oh, hey, these people are, and then I was like, wow, that's really specific. And then I was like, oh, they actually replied to the podcast. And so then I tried to like reply to them, and, and there's no way for me to do it.
They can review individual episodes?
No, it's like a Q&A type thing. So like on the last one, like legal versus ethical, like they could join the conversation and say, I feel as though this or whatever.
During the podcast?
No, I
How
think
are they
it's
going
like,
to do that during the podcast?
That's what I'm saying. I don't understand. When
we're recording
that's
right now.
some serious woo-joo. But anyways.
Okay, so
my
our
point
podcast is slightly redneck. We don't know how to use. We're lucky that we're getting these out, and you guys are able to listen to them. I'm just lucky that I can make it through another one listening to them. Okay, that's what it is. All right, are you guys done jacking around so I can introduce our guest? Because
we learned something. That was not jacking around. He was educating.
You are wasting these people's valuable and precious time because they're here to learn. They are not here to walk.
I'm not listening to you. Huh? You're wasting oxygen. I'm not listening to you.
Yeah, okay. Don't even go there, TCVY boy. That's an inside joke or an outside joke. Depends on where you tell it.
That was the dumbest dad joke I have heard in a long time.
Wasn't it?
It landed.
Do we have one of those little things on our podcast deal that go like, ching,
wah.
I think there's sound effects on that board, I'm pretty sure.
All right. So with that being said, we're going to get started. And today's we have another special guest other than Warren and Easton.
We're not special guests. We're on it every week.
I know, but I like to say it.
Okay.
So you can do whatever you want.
If anybody's a special guest, it should be him because me and Warren have done one without you.
Okay.
Ooh.
Yeah.
We never even aired it, though.
Yeah. See, you realized that this was not right.
Anyways.
All right. But anyhow, we want to introduce Joey. Joey is a good friend of the whole family's, really good friend with Easton. And Joey has just kind of gotten into hunting, and you're going to have to correct me if I'm not going to do too much of an introduction so that we can pick your brain as we go.
Okay.
But we thought that this would be a very good podcast to bring up a topic of getting someone out there for the first time, getting them started. Some of the things that I'm sure you're going to things that you faced throughout the season and questions you had and things like that when you've been doing this for as long as we have, we tend to forget that, oh yeah, he probably doesn't know that or, things like that. So anyhow, and we'll just dive into whatever topics that come up, but so please everyone give Joey a warm welcome. And if Nick knew how to run the things, he would hit a
round of applause,
clapping their hands.
Golf clap.
Noise. Yep.
Yeah. So anyhow, welcome, Joey.
Thank you.
I think if anybody ever golf claps for me, I'll be offended. Like I would much rather be like, yeah, man,
put something in there.
Yeah, I want a little oomph behind it.
Whatever.
Egotistical men.
No, come on. Like when Tiger Woods like drains a shot or something, and everybody's like,
I would definitely rather have them cheering for me. I would agree with that.
Yeah, imagine if like LeBron dunked and everybody.
Yo, trap. I got in trouble with trap. Shooting trap. The first time I ever shot, I didn't realize it was a quiet sport because you're shooting a freaking shotgun. And I cheered. The first time I ever hit a clay, I was like, oh, yeah, let's go. And they're all like, shh.
Like it's a library.
Trap is quiet?
Yeah, you're not supposed to talk while you're on the line or nothing.
So you guys
Really?
guys come by that honestly because I hit my first home run in high school. I never had hit one anywhere else. And I'm running around. I'm hauling. I don't know that it's going over the fence. I mean, like, I'm already at second. And as I come around second, the dude's going, you can slow down now. And like, he thought I was being a jerk, you know, and I'm like, I'm just cruising as fast as I can.
Why would that be being a jerk?
I guess because, like, you're rubbing it in someone's face or something, and then the umpire's
Wouldn't that be
doing
like
this.
Walking around would be like rubbing it in
I don't
their
know,
face?
but he was mad, and the umpire's doing this, making the sign, and I don't know what that sign is. And it wasn't until the second baseman said, you could slow down now, and then I was like, what? And then they said it went over. So then I'm doing the whole fist pump, jumping up and down.
And anything, they really got pissed.
Well, yeah, because then I had some black kids that were on our team, and they were making fun of me because they're like, "He was freaking jumping!" And I'm like, "Dude, I had no idea that I hit a home run until I turned second, and I didn't even know what that really meant." So that's where you guys get it. So there you go.
Yeah, that
See, Joe, you had no idea where any of this was going to go.
I love it, though.
What?
I love it. You should have just kept going. You should have gone quicker around the second.
I wasn't thinking. I hit the ball, and I knew it went
another
in the
lap.
air,
Going for time.
So,
do a victory lap after the victory lap.
That remained in the lineage. Did you know you're supposed to apologize to soft pitch or slow pitch pitchers if you accidentally hit them in the leg before you go to the base?
I heard that you got into a fight about that.
That was great.
Not actual, but like,
oh, he freaking drilled the pitcher.
I hit him in the thigh though, you know. So like I knew that it's not mortal. He's gonna be fine.
Yeah.
But I freaking ran the first, and then I was like, hey, you know, sorry. And they're all like super pissed at me. And I was like, you got to finish the play. Like, sure, if I hit him if it hit him in the head or something like that, yeah, it'd be a lot more concerned. But he ain't gonna die, you know.
Right? It'll buff.
Yeah,
this is slow pitch softball we're talking about. It's beer league, all right.
This is a men's sport, man.
Yeah, I was like, but then I've been really pissed. You know, if they like picked it up and tagged me out, I'd be like, that's BS.
That
you
is.
know? So I made sure I was safe first.
You're just aware of strategy. That's all.
Yeah.
You can't knock yourself. No way.
Good job, Warren. We're proud of you.
All right, let's get started here.
I'm proud of you.
So
I
what,
didn't say sorry.
What do we want? Do we want to have Joey recap kind of what, like, his year? Because
Well,
he
I
had a
think
stellar year.
I think the first thing I'd be interested in now is one thing I was thinking about talking with Easton earlier is obviously everybody here was raised hunting. Yours is somewhat different, but you still were introduced from your brother.
Little kid.
So, and you never were introduced to hunting by anybody in your family, right?
Not necessarily. It was more on like a lesser scale when I first had like met with my family about it. I just voiced interest. It's probably like 3 years ago now.
So, and you're what, 21?
22 now.
22 now?
So I mean,
at 19?
about, yeah. And
What got you interested in the first place?
So I'd always had an interest. Like growing up, like it was all on my dad's side, and they're all in small town, northwest Iowa. And even as like a little kid, I'd walk in, and their garage was just full of mounts. Like, and I always like to just kind of hang out, look up at them. And I'd talk to my cousin about him because he was primarily the one that would hunt in their family. And I guess I just kind of discounted the fact that I ever really could get into it, at least at the age that I was at. I just felt like it'd have to be something further down the road when certain things lined up a certain way. And, well, I guess they did now. But at the time,
You met the right people.
I did. I got lucky. And it was cool because I finally, after enough time, just kind of approached them. And it was like, is this something that, like, I can maybe try out? I was just given a shotgun by my uncle, that same family, because they heard that, like, I just wanted to get into hunting. I didn't even necessarily specify that it was necessarily deer. I was like, I want to get outside and I want to get into some form of hunting. And I was just kind of fingers crossed, hoping that it'd be deer, because that's kind of what they did. And so they took me out for a shotgun season, and I got really good at laying on a hill covered in snow. Like, I got really good at it. And I never got a
tough skill to master, man.
Never really, just complete Carhartt Brown laying on a hillside with my shotgun just freezing because
So this is 18 or
yeah,
so?
I was 18, 19 at the time, yeah. And no insulated boots, just learned that quick. That was a mistake. No wool socks. I mean, it was like, there were certain things that I learned.
They didn't, like, tell you, hey, you might want boots or anything?
I think I just kind of showed up and they were like, all right, the kid's ready to go. And I was just excited. And so that was kind of like that experience for me. And it was cool because I got to see my cousin harvest one. And I kind of got to see the cleaning process for the first time ever. And that was really cool. It was like just like a cool experience, even though I wasn't able to come away with anything. Like,
so were they doing drives or just sitting or what?
We just sat. Like, me and my cousin just kind of went into the woods in like northwest Iowa. Is like, you're lucky if you have timber. And so we just sat in this real small patch of timber and just waited for him to come in. And this is, I mean, it was bitter cold, and you're just kind of sitting there hoping that something.
It's flat, too, so it's probably, if there's any wind, it's probably.
Exactly. And so you're just kind of hoping that something walks in. So it was like a complete, it's just not exactly the way that I know hunting today, but it's just a different perspective that I had at the beginning. And it was definitely a fun one to look back on. It's pretty funny.
Did that turn you off of it?
Not at all. Like, they were, if I remember correctly, it was like late shotgun season, and I don't want to get like blasted for not getting this correct, but I'm pretty sure it's like a 2-week season. And so
2 weekends.
2 weekends.
Yeah,
it's
2
like
weekends
9 days long,
type of deal, yeah. And so I didn't harvest anything that first weekend, obviously. And I asked my uncle and cousin again. I was like, all right, so like, can I drive back up next weekend? And they're like, oh, really? Like, they were kind of surprised that I was still wanting to get after it. And so when I did, I went back up. Still didn't come away with anything, unfortunately. But, like, if anything, it just made me want to more. Just
now, did you even get to see a deer? I mean, a live deer?
I did. We were positioned just enough to where we probably had a buck. It wasn't anything, like, massive in terms of size, but it's probably probably around 120-inch buck. And it got about as close to us as, like, 100 yards away. And we just kind of weren't able to harvest anything out of it. But it was just, like, cool to see them.
Right.
We didn't even have a doe come close. Like, we were just kind of looking at them, like, a couple 100 yards away, eating in a field. So, I mean, it was cool just to see them. And the wind switched on us at one point, so I was kind of learning about wind and things like that. And I was just, for lack of better, I mean, there's irony in this, but I was a deer in headlights getting into it. So it was kind of like one of those things that I'm glad that I kind of went through it. But
did you think, like, before you started with them, did you think the wind even mattered? Like, would you ever even think about that?
I thought about it, but not enough to really, like, it'd be honestly humorous if you would have sent me out and kind of just told me what to be aware of. I mean, you could have even told me about the wind, and I would have sat there and still really not had a clue.
Oh, that's what to me is so crazy. So we've had a few people write in from this podcast, actually, that are new hunters, too. And they've had to figure out all this stuff on their own. And I've thought about that, some of the stuff that we think of before as hunters. Like, if I didn't grow up around Dad and actually hunting, like, I don't think I would ever be thinking, like, if I sit in this tree, that deer could smell me.
Yeah.
200 yards away.
Exactly.
I'd be like, no, that's stupid.
You also, I think if you break that down even more, I would have never paid attention to the direction of the wind if I'm looking, like if I'm watching the news, or I'm saying that because back in the day they didn't have an app for the Weather Channel back, and they're going to give us crap for it. But when you're watching that, you see northwest wind. I would have never thought that is out of the northwest. I would have thought it's going to be blowing to the northwest. I never would have connected that until you walk out and you think it's going to the northwest, and you throw a piece of grass up or something like that, and it goes the opposite direction. You're like, what the heck? But now the app has a little arrow, so you can tell which way it's going. They don't give you the direction. But
that still isn't accurate half the time.
Well, I think camouflage falls into that same thing, whether or not you need it, or the right boots or the right hat or the right clothing. Until you're sitting, you would, the closest that someone might come to maybe going to a football game, and sitting in the stands, and then you're still moving around and things like that. And then all of a sudden, how quiet do I have to be? That kind of stuff. How far can they hear me? I mean, there are all kinds of things that you take for granted or that you don't realize that you've learned. You guys grew up with it. So, it's kind of like, what do you mean you didn't know that? But so many people are in what we've heard, or what the stats are telling us, is that COVID has brought a lot more of Joeys out there. People that are looking to get into hunting because they want to, it kind of scared them, like, oh, if something really like this happened and I couldn't feed myself, so now they want to go hunting, and
they
so
also couldn't do anything. They had to, like, all outdoor recreation sports blew up.
Well, that's what really irritates me about stuff you see on social media when people are ripping somebody when they ask a question about the wind or something like that. Because if that was somebody like yourself, and how else do you know that? And then you're gonna ream somebody for that.
And then what's going to happen is someone like yourself, Joey, is going to go, "Oh my gosh, they're all making fun of me now, so I'm not asking any more questions. I'm done with this."
Yep.
You know, and that's what we have to catch ourselves as hunters, especially as seasoned and veteran hunters. And what happens is, and I tell people all the time when we do our camps, what you're hearing from those 12-year-old to 17-year-old kids is not their answer. You're hearing grandpa. You're hearing dad, you're hearing the uncle, whoever it was that has been mentoring them. And so some of the times you can't get mad at the kid when they got something that is, and the one that comes up is, how do you handle a gut shot deer? You know, and I ask it at every camp. Number one, the first question I ask is, what is going to happen to a gut shot deer? They're going to die. And then, but the kids will tell me usually it's half and half. Nope, they might die, you know. And then how do you handle that? Oh, we run them down, you know. We push them until they, you know. They're just all different types of things, and then you are trying to correct that stuff. So, I think it's huge for someone like yourself to be able to enlighten us on those little things that we're missing. You know, I think it's huge. I think you should get a lot of credit for starting. And I'm not knocking your family, but doesn't sound like they're like not as heavy into it as we are, you know, which I don't blame. There's a whole lot of hunters that aren't in it at our level. And I don't mean that as in we're above someone. I mean that we do it so much.
Yes.
And yet no matter how bad it was or the weather or the circumstances, it seemed to fuel you more instead of turning you against it.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Were any of them bow hunters?
My cousin was.
Your cousin
was? He was the one sitting with me. And, I mean, I had my shotgun with him, but he prefers to bow hunt. And then I guess he has a brother as well that prefers to bow hunt. Okay. So they like to do that more than anything. I know that they have, like, rifle season. Like, they'll kind of partake in rifle season and things like that. But
yeah. Well, introducing somebody to archery hunting it's just such a different world. Because, I mean, to begin with, you got to teach them how to shoot a bow.
Yeah.
I
mean, yeah, you're standing – I think Easton had me standing 5 yards away from
your first arrows.
Yeah, for my first arrows, and it was like even then I was nervous because I was like, I don't think I've ever pulled back on a bow before unless you're counting like second grade PE, and they were plastic. So plastic. I mean, it was like, yeah, it was that was probably the coolest transition because I was able to take some of what I learned from my cousin because I did learn, and I did have like other hunting experiences after that.
So why don't you just bring us to that point, like to the point that take us through your hunting stuff till you hit the time that Easton, you and Easton decide, all right, we're gonna make Joey a bow hunter.
Okay, so I obviously, like I just said, spent a couple weekends hunting with my shotgun, and like I just said, didn't harvest anything, but I was able to later that season. Actually, it was late muzzleloader. We went out, maybe it was even a year later, but we went out and I was able to hunt with a buddy who just has a family connection, knows a gentleman that has a lot of land. And so we were able to, it was, complete 180 from what I had just done. I told Easton about this. It was like I was laying on a snowy hill, freezing my butt off, and now I'm in an insulated elevated blind, and it was like I was sweating in a sweatshirt, and it was
you had a heater rolling for you.
Yeah, I could have been in a t-shirt and shorts if I really wanted to, and it was cool because I got to see certain things like the deer that came in got a lot closer. I got to kind of watch some of their behavior, and even then, like being so inexperienced with it, I was like, okay, like I should be able to get away with a lot more. And, like, to some degree, yeah, but I also learned that, like, they can see you. They can smell you. Like, we had the windows open, and it was, like, even then I was like, dang, like, this is even not.
It's not a guarantee.
It's not a guarantee like you think it is. But it was cool because that was the first time I'd ever successfully hunted a deer. I shot a doe with a muzzleloader, and she was probably about 70 yards out, and she just kind of dropped where she stood, and I was like, okay, I took probably 2 or 3 shots with the muzzleloader before that. First ever shots on, felt really good, dropped her, and then had a really cool moment with that deer when I was able to walk up on her, and I was like, okay, this isn't so hard. Like this was a really cool experience, and like I'm all about it. And I was talking to my buddy about it. I was like, I think this is like the coolest thing in the world. And I kind of went forward thinking that like, oh, okay, I can do this. Like this isn't too taxing. And
Easton's like, let me see what I can do.
Yeah, in comes Easton. Yeah, and I had voiced to him. I mean, I told him about it. I'd voiced to him just like my interest in it, and he was like, well, let's see. Like, I don't know if you're interested, but like, let's see what we can do about getting you set up with a bow. And I was like, I'd love to do that. That was like end goal, what I wanted to do. I just didn't like see it happening as quick as it did for me.
Oh, I didn't either, if it gives you.
Yeah, and I was worried because I was like, I mean, I feel like I'm semi-confident with a lot of things, but that I was like, oh boy. Like, let's see where this, because I want to, there was like a certain degree where I was like, I don't want to just look like I have no idea what I'm doing, even though I had no idea what I was doing. And so you kind of have to, like, you kind of put on like some sort of facade, and you're like, oh, I've been here before, when you just haven't.
Fake it till you make it.
Yeah, and then Easton's like, lift this. What are you doing with your, like, and it's just kind of like, okay. But that was like the coolest thing, is getting behind a muzzleloader, getting behind a shotgun, and then it's like, okay, to some degree, that gun will do a little bit of work for you, whereas like, I hope you're hitting the same exact anchor point every time. Otherwise, this arrow is not going to do what you think it's going to do. Yep. And that was like one of the most frustrating things for me to wrap my head around in the summer when he had me shooting targets.
I would normally say that, like, you should shoot for a while before you go hunt.
Yeah.
And when we started shooting during the summer, I was not I was like, maybe we'll get to go try to shoot a doe or something like that. I was not fully anticipating the fact that you would be ready to go that quick. It was like, what, May probably when you got your bow?
Probably about, yeah.
May or June. Never shot till then. And then October rolls around, and it like we were confident that you were ready to roll, like ready to shoot.
Yeah, it was a quick little turner. I almost kind of treated it like in a guilty way, like a school project, because it was like at first I'd show up on occasion and I'd let some arrows fly, and I was like, okay, I feel pretty good about it. And then another like 2-3 weeks would go by, and I'd come back, and I was like, okay, I definitely need to practice and stuff like that. But it was like I almost procrastinated it to the point where it was like the later in the summer it got, the more we would scout, and the more I was like, okay, you gotta get rolling. I really got to practice.
I remember you telling me that out here.
Yeah.
I've been shooting some, but not as much as I need to. And so if it's okay with you, I'm going to come down here like every day, you know. And I was like, no, that's what I mean. And truly, a bow is it's not like a gun. Mm-hmm. Typically, a gun, you can sight it in, and it's sighted in. Yes, two different people will look through it slightly differently, but not like a bow. A bow won't be you cannot be on with the same bow if you don't practice enough.
Yeah, it was a lot of practice, which was fun. It was fun to learn that.
And you have to be willing to say, I don't know what I'm doing. Because if you don't go into that on some stuff, that when you really don't know, then the learning process takes longer, in my opinion.
Yes.
Where I think that's one thing I've seen with people with archery a lot through camp, I feel like, is you'll see them, like, right when you start, when they have no idea. Like, the kids that come that they've been shooting for a year or 2 years, and dad has rigged something up for them. And then the kids that come and they have no idea what they're doing, and we set them up a bow. Mm-hmm. Those kids usually are out shooting the other kids by the end of the first day, because they're taking the instruction and they don't have all these bad habits.
Yeah.
And they're just taking every single thing that you tell them, and they all apply it. So like they're concerned about their anchor point. They're concerned about squeezing the release. Yeah. Where this other kid's got a draw length that hits his ears, and my dad told me it's all right, and then he's pulling an Easton and just hammer slapping this thing and can't hit the broadside of a barn, but he'll tell I've been shooting for 3 years, man,
He's got 6 different arrows, they're all different sizes and shapes. But hats off to those dads.
Yeah.
Because those dads are still trying, and they're getting their kids out there, and he's got that interest, and thank God we got dads doing that. Mm-hmm. At the same time, it's probably harder for dads to do what you did, which is step back and say, I don't really know what I'm doing. Mm-hmm. That's hard, especially when you got a kid involved. If someone questions you on the range, and your son's standing there, and they say, why do you have all those different arrows? Where the dad has been telling his kid, oh, they're all the same. They're just different manufacturers. They're just fine. Well, someone that knows better would say one's an inch longer than the other. They're going to shoot slightly different, and things like that. So I think and that can happen anywhere. It doesn't happen in just hunting. I think, boy, checking our ego, especially as a dad, hunting does it, because hunting will, if you have flaws like that, they'll come out.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, and the unfortunate part is they come out. If we don't catch them, they come out by wounding an animal or missing an animal, and that's unfortunate for the animal and for the hunter. Mm-hmm. So, but no. All right. So you've got a bow in your hand. You've been shooting all summer, and now Easton's talking you into, we want to kill something with that bow.
Yep. And so we just we did enough scouting in the summer too. We were out there a lot. We were scouting a lot.
Probably to a fault.
Yeah, and I didn't know how much we were scouting. And I was like, this
actually,
is quite
Joey,
a bit.
that wasn't scouting. You guys were hunting.
Oh,
Joey's like,
call that.
Now I'm seeing some of the issues.
We will not be doing it that much this year.
It was just, I remember I didn't think much of it. I was like, oh, this is awesome. Like, we come
that's
out
what
here,
I was
we
thinking
do
too, until I realized the repercussions
I
of
was
it.
gonna say, we do X, Y, and Z, and then all of a sudden, eventually Easton's like, man, I've never scouted this much. And I was like, oh, man, we must be out here a lot, because I thought this was just kind of like a thing that everybody kind of does.
Oh, no.
When they have the opportunity to. But, yeah, we were hitting that hard in the summer. And I guess by the time October rolled around, we were in a stand.
Every day.
Yeah. I mean, it was a lot.
So you got
I think there was one day.
You've got to give us an idea of, in Joey's mind, okay?
Yeah.
Going into bow season, and you've been doing all the scouting, and I know Easton's been just filling you full of stories.
Yep.
I'm sure I was too.
Yep.
And you've heard that. You've been down here. You're at the office. You're seeing all this stuff.
Yeah.
What were your expectations? Like, what did you expect when you went out on the first couple bow hunts? Like, what was in Joey's mind of what this was?
I think I'm scared to hear this.
So, I mean, you got to keep in mind, like I just got done saying, I was the kid that had been out a couple times with a shotgun, unsuccessful, but it's not like I had some grandiose expectation of what that was going to be. And then I brought a muzzleloader out, and it felt fairly easy. So I was like, okay, I've been told. Easton and Warren have been talking to me a lot. Like, this is just a different style of hunting. It's going to feel a lot different. My heart's going to pump at things that it might not normally on like a normal sit. But I think that, like, first day, second day, we might not get something, but maybe the third. Or something like that. It's like I'm going to have to work a little bit harder at it. And I had to work a lot harder at it. Where it was like, just the things that, like, you go into it thinking is like, oh, like, we've been putting a lot of time in. Like, I'm going to sit here and eat my Casey's pizza and stare at a computer screen and go, oh, yeah, he's for sure going down. And then you just don't see him at all. You see him every day on camera at this time. And then the moment you sit in the stand, he's gone. And you're like, sounds good. Okay, we got some work to do. But it took us a bit
that
to
happened so many times.
Yeah, it took us a bit to even find the deer. I mean, it was
a rough start.
Yeah.
So you're saying trail cameras gave you unrealistic expectations?
Absolutely. It was cool, too, because we did see some of them on the hoof. Like, we saw some of our target bucks and things of like that.
Well, you guys first sit.
Yeah, we saw. It
RJ.
Was. Yeah.
The one thing, too, I think we should talk about is, to Joey's credit, he's very humble. But he's not going to talk about the fact that he does listen very well. So
he walked into
what you were saying.
This summer, he was like a sponge.
Yeah. But
it's easy to teach when they come with. We're scouting that much. It's easy to teach when they're there that much.
Right.
You know?
Well, and I think that Joey, too, is one of those where, some people you can tell them, look, you can't move in the tree, or you can't be doing this, or you can't be doing that, and they ain't going to get it until they get you busted on a big deer or something. And it's clearly their fault. Like, then they're like, okay, you were right,
Yeah.
Where you're one of those that you're going to probably, Easton's like, all right, Joey, like, you can fart. It's all right.
It is 100%.
And
100%.
Or you get to your stand and you realize, I told Joey to be really quiet and stay still, and he's still standing 150 yards back.
I was about to say that. I'm like, can I move now? Like, is it okay?
He's like, Dan,
yeah,
please.
I forgot to tell him, come on.
Yeah.
And so there he is.
I was definitely, like, when we would kind of talk before certain sits, he's like, okay, like, I think we might have a target buck in the area, so just be aware. I was, like, already in my head, like, all right, like, you ain't moving a dang muscle. Like, if you see it, I don't care how far out it is, you're sitting and you're not moving. And then you're going to wait for Easton to get mad at you for not grabbing your bow. Like, because I just didn't want to be the reason that, like, we educate him or something like that. That was just...
Your mentor was a bit intense, too, though.
It was one of those, like, he definitely had a really cool intensity, but, like, he did it in a really good way that was, like, I never was scared that he was going to be, like, genuinely very upset with me.
Right.
Like, I knew that, like, if I were to goof, he was going to be able to, and he did a couple times, like, tell me, like, dude, I know what I signed up for in taking you out hunting. Like, I know what this brings, like, a new hunter. So he was really cool for that. But
so after you saw RJ then on the first day, were you kind of thinking, like, well, this is going to be easy?
Part of me was thinking that in the stand, and when we're walking out, back to the truck, Easton's like, man, that's never happened in my life. And I'm going, well, okay. Like, I'm not going to just then assume that it's going to be easy and that I did for a brief second in the stand, but then he made it, like, very clear very quickly that, like, that necessarily isn't a commonality on October 1.
Right. The other thing about it, too, is we saw 3 deer. 3 deer.
Yeah.
That first morning we didn't see anything, did we? I don't even remember where we sat.
That first morning. I don't think we did see anything.
I don't think we did either. But then we went that evening.
Did you guys sit the first morning on opening day?
No, we did.
We sat like every day.
I think
until he knew that he needed to go see his family.
That's what I thought you were going to say a therapist.
Both, honestly. Shout out to my mom.
It was like a Sunday. He's like, man, I should probably go see my family. They've been asking where I'm at. I'm like, well,
I was getting texts. They were like, are you alive? Are you okay?
Joey's got a beard.
I'm going to look like Tom Hanks off of Castaway by the time I see him again. Yeah.
It was 3 deer, though. We saw 3 deer that whole day. And the fact that the last one we saw was our second biggest one we had was like, you made you forget about the whole 10 hours before that of not seeing anything.
Yep.
So, I mean, it was crazy. We saw a target buck, but it was also like we didn't see anything that day besides just that deer.
Help me remember. Was the first objective for Joey to kill any deer, or were you just trying to kill a doe? Specifically a doe first?
Yeah.
Oh, we set the north 80.
Because I'm pretty sure that was the morning I was full draw.
Yep.
But she just...
So we saw like 3 does.
We saw a few in the morning.
That was the first morning?
Yep. But it was like first light.
Yeah, it was.
That
was
right away,
and we didn't see anything else.
Yeah.
So how many days was it till you missed the doe?
It was the second day.
Oh, that was day 2?
Day 2.
Okay. Oh, that's right.
But then after that's when the drought started.
Yeah.
Where we were going skunk after skunk.
Yeah, that was rough.
So
and even that, we saw 1 deer that entire day, or 2 or 3 that night, but 1 deer only ever even came close.
Yep. It was like we were just struggling to see anything.
So tell us about the miss, because from my perspective, that was a pretty significant experience in Joey's bow hunting life.
And that's something that, like, in my head, it wasn't like I was expecting the first arrow that I would let fly to miss. I just had known that you hunt long enough, like Easton told me, you told me, like, you're going to at some point. You're going to miss. And so, like, I wasn't in my head like, all right, let's get this over with. Let's just miss now. But, like, it was one of those things.
Get out of the way.
Yeah, I let it fly, and it felt bad. To be completely honest with you, I was like, I thought I was doing all the things, and then it was just a blackout. It was almost like I had no idea what I was doing by the time. Like, after I'd let the arrow fly, Easton could have turned to me and said, "Did you find your anchor?" I could have gone, at this point, I don't even know what an anchor point is, because I blacked out completely. It was just honestly a blessing that I missed her clean. Like, it was just a clean miss, but I was very sad, and Easton could tell you how distraught I was. I was not in a good mood. Like, I was very upset. I felt like I disappointed him, and that was another one of those talks that he had to have with me where he's like, dude, like, I know what we're getting ourselves into here. Like,
was your heart pumping?
Oh, yeah.
Was it like anything else you'd felt yet?
Nope. And I didn't even mention that, like, the season prior with Easton, I was able to shoot and harvest my first buck. And that was, like, at the time, a crazy adrenaline rush.
Yeah.
But, like, drawn back on a
with
bow.
With a muzzleloader.
Yes, with a muzzleloader. Yes. Drawn back on like, even just, it could have been anything. Like, my heart was going so crazy before I even had grabbed my bow, just because I knew what needed to happen in order for this to be pulled off successfully.
And that's what I know all of us have been telling you about, is that, we can't explain the feeling that you're going to get until it happens.
Yeah, it's an absolute rush.
Well, that's the other thing. That's why we talk so much about having like a process when it comes to making a shot, because like to this day, the majority of the time, I still won't remember putting the pin on an animal, like even myself. Mm-hmm. But that's why I do those things. I do on Magnum because I guess the yardage so far off that I still remember that one.
That's funny. Yeah,
But I think you brought up something a minute ago when you were talking about one. You got excited, and I mean, I think you'll hear everyone here talk about if you don't, the day you stop getting that excited about anything you're shooting, you're probably done.
Yep.
It's just not doing what it used to do for you.
Yep.
I can tell you I'm 54 years old, and I still get jacked. I can see a doe walk through the woods, and it's no big deal. Mm-hmm. The moment that light switch goes on that I convince myself I'm going to shoot this one, okay, now all of a sudden there's like this, I don't know why. Now you'll learn to control it, and and so that's something that helps, having someone to talk you through it. But you were talking about it's all new. This is the first time that this has happened. You guys you're not even trying to kill a buck. Talking yourself through that moment when you're sitting in that tree, and you said it exactly, is it felt bad. Mm-hmm. And I guarantee you, if there's 5 others of us in here that have done this before. Yep. Okay. Every one of us could tell you when it feels right.
Yep.
When it feels right, very rarely does that shot not kill.
Yep.
I mean, there's just, and sometimes, I don't know whether there's a combination of the distance, the angle, the deer does this, you feel good, and all of a sudden you're at full draw, and everything, like Warren said, you're kind of in that mode or in that zone. And the best way I can describe it is compare that to like being at the plate when you're playing baseball.
Yep.
And there are days when that ball would come and it looked like it was freaking huge. I couldn't miss it. There's just no way.
That during my baseball career.
We know, we watched.
But then there was other times when that the pitcher was that good and you're up there going, "Oh God, he's going to throw me that curveball and I'm not going to be able to touch this thing." Or he's throwing 92 miles an hour in high school and you're scared to death he's going to hit me, but my point is what you just said, I think people need to understand that, because the exact opposite, and we're not there yet, but I want to hear, because I got a feeling that later on Joey's going to talk about it felt good.
Yeah.
And that is, and there's a difference there. And so I think what we need to learn is that there, later on in your hunting career, I would bet you'll find when you feel it doesn't feel right, you won't shoot. You'll just say, I'm not going to do it this time.
Yeah.
Even, the deer's within range or whatever, but something feels wrong and you let down.
Mm-hmm. I don't think he's necessarily referring to the fact of before the shot that much. I don't think that you were all that comfortable with the shot to begin with.
To begin with, I was already.
Well, I think that's just
normal reasons, but like after you let go, that feeling of like, ooh.
But that stuff is there. And just like, it doesn't feel as good right before the shot to get you to that point where it feels really good after the shot.
Yep.
But you didn't even know what you were feeling yet.
Exactly.
That's where experience makes a difference.
Yeah, like I was searching for the feeling that I'd been told about.
Yeah.
So
you found it.
Yeah. So the question I have is, after you missed and you said you're kicking yourself, you feel like you might have let Easton down. Yep. Did you doubt yourself?
Absolutely. Like I was like, oh man. Like I'm pretty sure it was the next day, if I remember correctly, that I drove all the way out here and started shooting again, because it was like
it was the next morning. Yeah.
Yep. It was like going into that too, it was like every time I came out here, I felt really good leaving. And then that happened, and I was like, oh, man, I need to just focus on that checklist again in my head, because clearly, like, I'd talked to both Easton and Warren about it that night that I'd missed, and they were saying, well, you just got to make sure that you have it down so that it's second nature when you do black out mentally. And you're like, so it's just, because if that is a thing and you have to jump over that hurdle, we're going to do what we can so that we can jump over that hurdle. And so I was out here. I wasn't like, oh, I'll never shoot a deer, like, successfully. Like, right. I wasn't, like, crazy down on myself, but I was down enough to be like, I need to just feel good about my shot right now. I need to, like, gain some confidence again. So I came out here a couple times that week, actually, and let some fly and felt great again.
You were shooting a lot. after that.
Yeah, I was.
Yeah,
I was out here a lot.
That's what I was like, yeah, it definitely had an impact because Joey's.
It did.
For sure.
I was in my head quite a bit after that. But
all right,
so that's when the drought kicked off.
Then, I was going to say, do we go through the drought? Or, I mean, because that's long. That could take the rest of the podcast.
Yeah, I was going to say, you might need another episode for the drought. It was long. It could be summed up, and it was long, and we didn't see anything.
And as much as I want to give credit to your teacher or mentor or pal or friend or whatever in Easton and what he was doing, he also can be somewhat stubborn sometimes. And so there was some times when Warren, I know, was offering, even if he was offering my place, he was like, Easton,
sounds about right, Warren.
Easton, why don't you go over here? You know, and my whole thing was, you guys are more than welcome. I got blinds, I got tree stands, whatever you guys want to do.
Yep.
Nope, we want to go to this stand where we haven't seen anything, make one show up so we can kill it.
Yep.
And
that was not the logic behind it.
It kind of was.
No, it was not. It was much deeper than that.
As contrary as it was, I think that you worked yourself out of opportunity to an extent. You know, it's one of those things where you're working so hard on trying to do something and get it to happen a certain way that it just never works that way. You know, which is, I'm saying that in a good way, that you wanted it to happen a certain way for Joey so bad that you were doing anything under the sun. You know, someone could have told you, you got to let Joey run your leg over with a truck. And you'd be like, okay. You know,
if that would have gotten us the shot the next day, I'm in.
Yeah. But I think
that's short pain, man.
That's what Dad and I were trying to say is now that you had that feeling, you know, trying to give people that are new bow hunters a controlled environment where you don't have, because that the only thing that was scaring me about that was not that you guys wouldn't get shot or anything. It's that in your mind, whether you may realize it or not, you probably going to be like, this might be my only opportunity. Mm-hmm. And that's when I think a lot of bad things happen, you know, because then it's like, I got to try and make this happen. Where when you have a more target-rich environment and you can pass a doe, you know, and there's another one coming out of the timber right away, it's not as near as detrimental, you know, to pass a shot or something. So I think that's all Dad and I were trying to get at. Was just like, let's give Joey a layup here. You know?
Just start with the layup.
We'll do a little shout out because that's what the Antler King food plots do. You know, I mean, they give you a reason for those deer to be there, and that's what I was able to tell you guys. Easton knows it, you know, and I was like, and he's like, well, what wind? And I'm like, I got blinds at every one of them for different winds, so you just have to pick and see which way the wind's blowing. That's which blind you go to. But I want you to get to that because I got to be a little bit of a part of that, and it was freaking cool.
That was very cool.
So that's up to you guys. I'll let you, because I know there's a whole lot more. There's a big story in the drought period time.
It was after, I think.
No, he already killed his doe that day, or at that point.
Yeah.
Okay.
You were at day 15. I want to say 15 when you killed your doe.
Okay.
15?
Pretty sure.
So what were your expectations at that point?
I actually, believe it or not, never mind. I think that was maybe when I had shot my first buck with a bow. That we went into that night feeling very good, but we'll get to that. But like going into this sit for a doe, I was like, I guess we'll see. Because it was like fingers crossed type deal.
It still wasn't going right, and it was on Dad's place where it's target-rich environment, and it's controlled. Everything went wrong that night until the last 15, 20 minutes.
How many times did you sat there? Only once?
One time before that.
Yep.
And
but
no
that
shot
sit was
on that
so
one?
No, we only saw 2, I think.
Yeah, we had 2 sit. Yeah.
The first one we only saw like 2 does, and then the moment we sat down in the blind, that was the grizzly, and we brought Christo.
Yep.
Which is his first hunting experience. But that one we saw, like Dad said, 3:30 or something like that. You guys got to be in there by like 2 or 2:30 or something like that. Or
show up early.
And they'll show up at least like right at 3 or 3:30. And I was telling Joey, I was like, hey, we're gonna get in there at the right time, but whatever Dad says, like, knock it off some, and like we'll probably see a couple deer by like 4 or 4:30 maybe before dark because he exaggerates everything. Well, so I was taking his expectations away just in case. And we saw right away, literally on the freaking minute.
It was on the minute he said we'd see deer.
I was like, are you kidding me? Right after I tell him this.
Open the gate.
Yeah. It was like,
It was ridiculous. It was literally
up there.
It was on the minute. I said, it's 3:30. Oh, yeah, there's a deer.
You even pulled out,
are you freaking kidding me?
You had a smile on your face. You pull out your phone. You show me the time. You go, well, it's 3:30. And then you look over. I'm like, dude, we got deer.
But cool. They would all come in and bust us. They all came. We saw, what, 20?
Yeah, a lot of deer.
We stopped counting. But they were all coming because the way at your 80, it's like
you're getting some swirling winds.
Yeah. And I told him, I said, if we keep these windows shut, I feel like we shouldn't really have to, like, we should get away with some more. So I don't know why we're going to have an issue. And every deer that got within 40 yards, no matter what side, gone.
See ya. Yeah.
So we were losing hope right there, too.
Yep. Is it really dead, though?
No, it was blowing.
Really?
There was the only reason we were sitting there is because it was that week where we had 20 to 30 mile an hour winds.
It was like pushing 30, I think.
Well, so it was probably blowing.
So but down in the bottom, that it's
swirling, just blowing around in a circle.
And so then the next night is when he killed his
dog? No, it was that night.
It was that same night. Yeah, it was one of those things, too, where we'd watched enough deer bust us that we had some probably like.
Christo spotted him.
Yep, he did. I'm pretty sure I even made a joke, like, Christo, good job spotting him. And I went, oh, yeah, there's probably like 4 or 5 over there. And I just looked at Easton and I was like, they're not even going to walk over here. Like, there's no shot. And sure enough, they did after.
They took their time, their sweet time. But after they started coming in, a bunch of them came in. It was like it took 2 or 3 of them to
test the waters,
get past the wall of what is that. But that was also when it did die down. I said, Joey, if we have any other chance to this evening, if it keeps blowing like this, they're just going to keep doing the same thing, whatever new deer. But if it dies down, I think that we got a shot. And it did. It got down to like maybe 10 mile an hour winds or something like that. And they finally came meandering in. There's like 10 of them out.
Yeah, right.
10 of them right in front of us.
Yeah. So how did you feel as though your mindset was going into that shot? Like,
it felt really good. It was one of those where one of the previous issues I had with my miss was that I didn't know the correct time to stop a deer, and I was like even adamant with him that I was like, oh, I want to try it. Well, I learned.
You always stopped him for us when we were younger, so we could learn when to kind of thing. And I guess I didn't portray how difficult it can be if you don't know.
And it was tough. Yeah,
you got to compensate for how much they're moving and stuff too.
Yeah, and I wasn't aware, I guess, at the time. But so going into this, I mean, needless to say, I was like, Easton, you got it. You're gonna stop. And like I'm not messing around. But he stopped him. Should I say her? And she just kind of
one of those grizzly blinds.
Yep, and she stopped right in between my 2 windows. So I'm like, oh man,
and you're already at full draw.
And I was at full draw, and so I was like, well, this is perfect. I mean, you can't draw this up any better. And so I was just able to kind of lean completely like in my chair, and I felt great like going in. I really did. I felt really good. I felt stable, and when I let it go, I felt great. And we had every reason to believe that I smoked her.
Yeah, I mean, we have video to prove it. I mean, it was a good shot. Your arrow went, I would honestly say your arrow went exactly where you were aiming.
It did. 100% it did.
And without a doubt, you were aiming where you should have been.
Mm-hmm.
You know, but it definitely kicked or did something because it didn't do what it was supposed to do as far as go straight through like we wanted it to.
Well, didn't he caught the very end of the knuckle, I think, didn't he?
I think so. I think that's what it clipped.
Which we did not know until we were into tracking for a bit.
And that was and didn't know that for sure until we actually got to the deer.
Yeah,
you know? But we had a feeling. So I guess I'll bring us up to speed. So Easton and Joey shoot this deer, and Easton has Christo with him. Christo's young. He's a pretty good tracker, but he hasn't done a whole bunch of tracks. They put him on him, which
there's tons of blood.
There was a lot of blood, but there was also a lot of deer that went that way.
Yep.
And so all the deer took off. Christo running behind them to help.
Only for 10 yards.
Only for 10 yards, but I have the trail camera video of Easton yelling at Christo.
That's got to be gold.
Oh yeah, no.
Yeah.
And they run off, and so then
that's Easton, how Dad knew to come over. He heard it at his house.
I wouldn't be surprised. I yelled so loud, I was not happy. But he came right back.
But
so to be clear for everybody, he jumped out of the window of the blind that's like
8 feet off the ground.
He was sleeping. He was like after he realized that he saw deer, he just went to sleep. Yep. And then the moment Joey shot, he picked his head up and just sees deer everywhere.
Launch.
Bailed. I got him to come right back, but that was.
So long story short, these guys call me and say, "Will you bring Dan and let me put?"
Christo did track it.
Christo tracked it
with his call after I put him on his collar, and he actually tracked it.
But Easton felt like, and he thought that you guys jumped the deer, and that it moved on you. And so anyhow, he said, "Let's just get Dan over here and see if that helps." And so the three of us, 5 of us actually, if you count the dogs, we get over there, and Dan gets on the track, and actually Dan gets out into the CRP. And, man, at that point, I thought we're in trouble, because we have blood. We know we're keeping up with blood, but it's hard to follow. And for those of you that aren't familiar with tracking with a dog, we do it a certain way where we like 2 people at minimum. One person is running the dog. The other person is following. They are confirming that you're on the track. And that's all they're doing. Hey, yeah, you're on blood. Because a lot of times as the tracker or with the dog, you don't have time to see it. Yeah. So as we're going, I start to track this. Long story short is it ends up being 1.38 miles. To this day, it's Dan's longest track. But he did a phenomenal job of slowing down, backing up, starting over again. I don't think that we actually jumped the deer anymore after that first time. Somewhere in the CRP, I believe that we jumped her. And then I think she went across and got across the creek. Yep. So we get to this deer, and it's 12 o'clock, 11 o'clock, something like that. Because
it was like 10 or something. Then are you saying when we came back?
No, when we came back and found the deer.
Oh, yeah, when we came back, it was like 11 or 12.
Yeah, so, but it was funny, and it wasn't funny, but watching Joey's reaction with, I thought I did everything right. I thought I did everything. I thought I made the right shot and all this. And Easton and I are trying to explain to him at this point now, when we were going through the CRP, I didn't have the same thing that I'm about to say. And that was once we cleared the CRP and we started down that creek and Dan was like, this is a no-brainer. We're going to find, and I was now seeing blood again. Yeah. I was confident. Yeah. We're finding this deer. I don't know when. And that's when we finally decided, let's back out of here. Let's back out and give her a little time and let Dan go do what he's known to do. Let him take a break because he had worked his butt off to get to there.
Yeah, he didn't want to stop either.
But trying to tell someone who that they've killed their first deer, but yet they can't put their hands on it, and what went wrong. The whole time he's going, I just don't know. I thought it felt good and everything. Yeah. And I felt horrible for you, but at the same time, I was like, let's just get to the deer so he can celebrate.
Yeah. I didn't realize that was over a mile.
Yeah.
It was easily.
And I didn't even.
That's a long track.
It was the most impressive track I've ever seen him do because it wasn't just
It wasn't a straight line or anything like that.
It was like
he circled and
she backtracked, she circled, she crossed. The only thing she didn't cross is like a large section of water. That's it.
That's a
Other
long
than that,
track.
she gave him every trick in the book to try, and Dan was on it, like impressively on it.
Yeah, that had to have been weird for you.
It was very weird. Like
just keeps going.
It was going. I think the weirdest part was the roller coaster in my head of, oh, I feel great about it. Oh, I feel terrible about it. Oh, I feel great about it again. And it was like I didn't even know towards the end how to feel.
Well, that's still not normal though. What you had,
and that was his question. That's what I remember him asking me. Is this normal?
Yeah, it was. I was like, is this really? Because here I am. Keep in mind, let me go back. I dropped a doe at 70 yards of the muzzleloader, and she didn't move. So now I'm thinking, okay, so this has been some hours now. Right. And I was like, okay, is this like a normal thing, Mr. Holder? Like, is this something that I'm going to do every time? And he said, no. This is not necessarily normal.
Joe was like, oh, boy, this is really going to be a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a long
So we
track.
leave, give Dan a break, we wait a couple hours, we come back. Walking in, and again, I don't know whether we give Dan any credit other than he was standing on top of the deer, but we don't even get to go track it again, and we walk up on a dead deer. I mean, and so I remember Joey or Easton, one of us was like, is that his?
I did. I asked. I was like, this doesn't make a whole lot of sense where she ran from to be here all of a sudden.
Well, it's because we had done all these circles and everything. When you started to look at where it was on X, it was exactly where we had left her. She probably hadn't gone 50 yards from where we last saw her or last jumped her. And so anyhow, we find this deer, and then you could see the relief on Joey's face, and for me, that was really cool to be there. And I just remember the two of you, that's something to get to witness two friends, because I almost think he was more relieved than you were.
Probably.
I mean,
yeah.
Well, I screwed up. The moment he shot, I was like, that's no doubt. That is a perfect shot. Because you watched the video. I said that looked like a really good shot. And I said, but let's watch the video just to be safe. And we watched the video. I'm like, oh, my gosh, that's even more perfect than I thought. Like, you did everything right. And I'm looking at the arrow over there. There's blood on it. When Christo jumps out of the freaking window, and I yell at him, he only made it to the arrow, but he sniffs the arrow and comes back, and he's got blood all over his face already. I'm like, okay, there's blood. There's got to be more than we're even seeing. And so I think I set him up right there. I should have been like, yeah, it's a good shot. We should be able to go over here and find it. Instead, I was like,
be excited about it when he does it. When you did exactly what you're supposed to. Everything you've been training to do.
Yep.
But I felt awful when we bumped her the first time. I was like, oh frick, I massively screwed up here. One, tracking her right this. It was like 30 minutes or 45 minutes after we shot, but that and the fact of just telling him everything I did, I was like, oh, this isn't going to be good.
But you had good blood already and stuff, right?
Oh,
great.
Tons.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was a lot, and it was good color and everything.
I would have done the same thing.
Yeah, I was going to say.
That's a tough spot, especially because he doesn't know the feeling. So he missed the one clean.
Right.
Great. Wonderful, because you miss, fix it, and we'll go from there.
Yep.
You hit this one, you can't find it. It's like, okay, now his expectations were they were going to walk over, find it. Then now she is still alive. Then we're trying to track her. We can barely find blood, and we're going and going and going. And he's like, dude, I don't know what to do. I'm like, the only thing I can tell you, man, is this isn't like I've never had this happen before.
Yeah.
I mean, we've had tough tracks, we've had rough shots, but I've never had a perfect shot turn into one speck of blood and not been able to find her. So something had to have happened that is out of our control. And I would imagine as long as we can find her, that's when we're going to figure it out. Because at one point we did question, because you found a chunk of guts. And so Dad was thinking it was gut shot. And I told Joey, I was like, man, I think the worst thing we could have here is single lung. That's the only thing I can think. Maybe some guts. And I think it ended up being, it glanced through a little bit of her guts, and mainly that single lung. But it glanced off with the knuckle. He couldn't do anything about that.
But see, now again,
besides just avoiding it altogether, which, you avoid it, but
that's
a quarter of an
what
inch
happened on that buck that you and I shot.
That you shot.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and that's exactly what I was getting ready to say is experience. The only reason that I had a feeling of what was going on is I'd been through this before.
Yeah.
Warren makes a perfect shot. We go back, look at the footage. He's jacked because it's a big deer, I mean, for anyone. And at the time, it was your biggest deer. Let's get out of the tree and let's go get the deer. We both saw the shot. And so I'm trying to say, let's just wait a little bit here. I don't think it would have mattered because the deer would have lived long enough to do what he did. But when we hit that blood trail, it was, okay, we're going to go 50 yards and the deer's going to be laying here.
Yep.
We find the deer the next day.
Oh, geez.
Because
it was the same thing. We had bumped
exact
him.
Same thing.
Yeah.
And we bumped that deer. And so anyhow,
the point I got nervous on that one was I was on blood, following blood.
Yeah.
And then Dad was like, what are you doing? And I said, I'm on blood. And I was like, what are you doing? He's like, I'm on blood.
Oh, geez.
And so then I started getting it was only like 100 yards. So I was like, okay, no big deal. But that was the first one I was like, oh boy, that seems weird.
Yeah, that's just
off.
And that was pre-Dan years. We didn't have Dan.
Tracking.
We had to do it ourselves.
Okay.
Yeah. But I'll tell you what, I can sympathize with you on that one. You'll have more of an idea the more hunting you do, but because that was one of the weirdest feelings I've ever had of doing everything right on my part and
feeling correct about it too.
Right.
Like
and having no control over
good.
it. It was a very helpless feeling that
that's the hardest
I haven't
part.
had happen that many times.
That was the hardest part I was trying to tell him was because I was trying to film Dan and Dad working, and then whenever I could, because he didn't have a headlamp on, but get some of him, but he was the one spotting, so he was the one looking for the blood and stuff. And so every time I catch up to him, and he were asking all sorts of questions about this and that, and I'm trying to explain this and that and everything, and I'm like, the only thing I'm trying to pound into his head is that you did everything right.
Yeah.
Right.
You did everything right to the point of the fact that you missed by a quarter inch and you didn't even miss. So you got to understand that if you hit right there, one, you can't see that knuckle clearly. So, and you want to be close to it anyways. So sometimes something's going to happen and it's okay. It's going to be out of your control. You don't want it to happen. But at the same time, our whole V, shooting the V, he knew all about that.
Yeah.
And I had told him, I said, this V that me and Warren are always talking about shooting right in that shoulder is you could do it, but I mean, I've done the math on it before, and I want to say it's like the at the most you have like 8 inches to 10 inches from where you hit the joint up to the shoulder plate to get in that small of a gap.
Yeah.
And as a new hunter, just go right behind the shoulder and you'll be good. So I was just trying to pound into his head as much as I can not to blame yourself for that one, because it happens to all of us.
Yeah, and I didn't really, like, I felt worse when I had missed, because I knew that, like, I was the one in control of the miss.
Yep.
Like, when obviously I felt bad just because it, like, the process itself took longer than anyone would have liked, but just for her sake. But it was one of those things that, like, I knew that I did what I needed to. Like, I knew that I was in control, and what I was in control of I did right. And, I mean, thanks to you guys, because you guys definitely, like you just said, made that a point. But, that was an experience. Like,
that's a rough 2 to start with.
Yeah, it was. I was worried too, because I was like, man, like, and that was the one thing Easton said when I had missed my first deer, is he was like, well, at least you didn't hit her, because that's the only thing that could be definitely worse than this.
Yeah,
is if, like, you wound her or you wound the deer. And so now, the longer we're tracking her, the more I'm like, great.
But so that reinstalled some confidence then, right? That, you did do everything right.
Yes, it did. And I was like, okay, like, that's how it should feel when I let the arrow go. Like, I felt great about it. Like, the way that I just immediately was excited to look at Easton. Like, when I'd missed the deer before, I didn't look at him excited.
Right.
Because I knew. I was like, darn. And he also was like, darn. Like it was one of those things. But
it was double darned up,
It was. And so obviously that feeling was good to move forward with. Of like, okay, that's how it's supposed to feel, I think.
Yep.
So who was the one that decided after that now you guys need to tackle trying to kill a buck with your bow?
That was the goal the whole time.
Yeah, that was
to kill a doe first to get him a little bit of experience, and then we'll focus on a buck.
And then it was end goal of just like, all right, let's.
At the same time, though, if a buck came by, it's not like we were passing.
Yep.
Like what you did, like a day or two before, you had that really weird antler.
170,
very
then
weird.
We pass.
That's his own logic.
I did do that. That is something I did.
Yeah, he got to full draw on a buck before.
I did, yeah.
We came down to your place. A really nice deer, actually.
It was actually a really cool, like, that was insane.
I thought it was going to happen.
Yeah, that kind of lopsided deer.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
And
that we never saw again.
I thought this was it. It's going to happen.
Yeah, it didn't. It
Man,
definitely
times
did
I
not.
had that happen.
So how long was it till you passed Elway after the doe?
You killed October 20-something, right? 23rd? October 23rd?
It was probably like a week, right? Ish.
Well, what's the same day you killed your buck?
That's November 2nd is the day that he kills his buck.
Yes.
Well, that's the day he passed Elway.
Yeah.
I know that, but I'm saying he's asked how long after.
So
when you killed the doe.
She had another 10 days of hunting there?
Somewhere around, I want to say it was around there.
They probably did some scouting in there, too.
Oh, yeah.
Here we go. October 14th.
October 14th?
So it was even.
You shot the doe. He shot his doe on October 14th?
That's even longer than I thought it was between.
So it wasn't 15 days, it was 14. 13 or 14 that you
16.
hunted.
Dang. Yeah, that's a lot longer than I thought it was.
It was for me, too. I mean, also, though, like, so many days just blended together for me.
Yeah.
Where it was like, I wasn't even really seeing days go by. I was just like, all right, another sit. Like, I didn't even know calendars existed during this time, besides just the fact that I was okay to shoot legally. Like, that's the only thing that, like, mattered at that point in time.
Yeah.
So it was like, I didn't realize it was that long, though.
Yeah, that's a long time.
So are you going to explain this, or is you going to make Joey explain it?
Well, I think we've explained it before, but now we just have the famous one
the
that everybody asks about.
The guy that did the thing.
We were at ATA, and people were saying that they saw my YouTube video of my year, and they're all like, man, you got a friend.
That's funny.
You got such a good friend. I was like, yeah, I know. I don't know. I know he's a good friend, but he might be a little crazy in the head, too.
That's
one of
I took it upon myself to when Warren reached out and was like, we're going to get you on the pod if that's something you're wanting to do. And I was like, you know what? Easton was just telling me a while ago to check the comments on the YouTube video and the Instagram post because I didn't really do it yet.
Yeah.
And I was kind of laughing at. I mean, it was pretty split. Like, there were some people that were like, you're crazy. And then there were some people that were like, man, we need more Joeys.
Uh-huh.
So I was like, you know what? I'm going to start liking their comments a little bit. I like these. Yeah. But it was kind of cool to read those.
Did you call it the pod?
Yeah, he calls it the
pod.
We're gonna have
The pod.
We'll introduce a new section where Joey can teach us
Lingo.
updated lingo.
Dude, that was the best part about deer season. We sat so long together that he was teaching me stuff that I'm like, I feel like I'm a pretty in the loop kind of guy, and then I hang out with him. I'm like, I didn't even know short shorts were back. Like,
hey, let me teach you, man. Yes, sir.
So you guys not have any shots at like any opportunities at bucks in that 16-day window?
No,
other than Elway,
absolutely not.
Not getting close at all, though.
A couple times.
The closest times we would have been. We saw Elway.
We did. We had.
But that was before the doe, wasn't it? No, it wasn't. We hadn't even gone in there yet. That was the October 17th is when we saw him the first day.
And that was, I think, the same night we had Elliot walk by.
Yep, Elliot.
And I wanted a
buck and then another deer. No, so we had 3 or 4 days there where it was very good.
There were some.
Because we had just discovered Elway Bottom.
Okay.
Like where to get into there and everything.
Yep.
And that's where he had. So I think actually where you got full draw on that Wampy buck was after you shot your doe.
I think so too.
Because that was the first ever morning sitting there.
Yes.
And so he had that opportunity, and then Elliot came by with another little buck, both shooters.
Yep.
But at dark.
Right.
Like dark. Like
Too
we were
dark.
sitting there long enough that like we just had so many deer around us, and they came running by. And Elway, we saw Elway that night, and then we also saw. That's the first time we ever saw him in person. Saw him, and then we also saw whatever that. I still haven't seen him again. 150 or 160 inch deer, like a beautiful 10.
Yeah.
That came after him, and never saw him again. But so we saw a lot, and then the next day we saw something like similar to that.
Yep.
Every time we sat that stand, we were seeing bucks. And then we moved it.
So how did you guys end up in a tree though, where he's got his bow and you don't? Because I guess that's what I'm trying to figure out is now you're.
That's all you right there. I'll let you.
You know
Me?
why?
No.
You're the reason.
Viewers don't know.
Okay, well, you're the reason.
Somehow this becomes my
No,
fault.
it is nobody's fault. There's no fault to be had here, but you are the reason that I wasn't carrying my bow, and it made sense, 100%. That's why I did it. But we had like a couple days there where it was good hunting, seeing deer, like, and I will say I know the land well enough now from hunting it long enough that I do know where the deer are at pretty well.
You
and
should
so
know where every cow turd is at by now.
No crap. But that going through the amount of droughts we had gone through, I'm like just confused as crap. But we were both carrying our bow because I had 2 deer one mainly that I would shoot, and we just wanted, just in case that came in or something, or he came in, that I would be able to shoot. And it got to the point where how long it took us to kill his doe, and then how long after that we're like sitting there. We were going day after day and stuff, like just couldn't get stuff close, and I was stressing to you about it. And Dad said, look, man, I've done this when we lived in Montana because there's so many different species you can hunt and overlapping seasons. I would go buy like all my tags, like my antelope, my mule deer, my whitetail, my elk, and everything. So when I go mule deer hunting and it's I don't know, I don't remember all the seasons, but say antelope season or something like that, and you're driving down the road to go to your mule deer spot, I would like see a good antelope and want to go hunt the antelope, and I'm supposed to be mule deer hunting. And so he said I was doing so many different things that eventually I'm like, hey, if I'm going to mule deer hunt, I'm going to mule deer hunt. I got to focus my energy on one thing. And so I took that like, okay, me and Joey are trying to, first off, Joey has not filmed hunts before. So if I hand the camera over to him for me to shoot, that's already a stressful situation. Secondly, shooting when you aren't sure how well the cameraman is getting the shot is stressful. Thirdly, he doesn't need to be worrying about maybe having a camera in his hand when he needs to be worrying about, okay, that's a buck that I can shoot, and I need to focus on me, focus on hunt. So I just said, look, man, we're going into this. We're killing you a buck, and once we're killing you a buck, then I don't care if you want to sit with me, not sit with me. I'm going ham on Elway, all in, and I'll find him then. But right now, we need to focus on one thing, and that was like the second day. I not carried my bow.
In hindsight, you know, it was really stupid on our part.
What?
Since I went with you guys that morning,
you should have just filmed.
We should just drove me down. Or I should drove to the office or something and grabbed a camera, and then
you had a camera, didn't you?
No, I did it with my phone. Remember? Because that was
the second time you came with us is when you had Dad's camera.
I think
because I remember there was one time you two were filming each other.
Yeah, we were filming each other.
Yeah, that was the second time.
That was the next day because I was hunting.
Yes.
Yeah, that's what it was.
Because if we would have just taken that time, then you'd have known that I'd have been able to film, and it would have been a freaking sick angle. But you'd have taken your bow.
We learned and we had an experience. But
yeah, I don't think you'd want to take that season back because you got to learn so much from that.
Am I supposed to go through what?
I think you would.
Or do you want to?
Oh man,
I can.
I was say I can if you want me to, but
I hate this story, but we're gonna be telling it for so long. Well, now we're looking at it, and it was 18 days, so 18 from the day that he killed his doe to when he finally kills his buck. But we went to where it was again. We were to the point where I'm like, come on. Like, there's so many freaking bucks here. Something's got to just accidentally walk by with how many there are. And we couldn't even get that to happen. And I was like, all right, man, we know where a lot of them are at, and we've been kind of avoiding the area because we know it's Elway's home. And he was a little finicky about going in there. And I was like, yeah, but at the same time, like, we're getting to the point now, like, we got to kill you something. Yeah. And so I'd moved that stand that we'd previously seen Elway in to a little bit better of a spot. And I told him the night before and argued with him in our house, and I know Warren had to have heard it, but I was yelling at Joey that he's got if we go here in the morning, I don't know if we'll see Elway, but if we do, you need to shoot, like, no question. And I just gotten done arguing with him about him not coming with us because he's shot his deer now and is like freaking out. Oh, I killed too early, man. I gotta still hunt. I gotta do something. So I don't care what you say. I'm going hunting with you. I'm like, no. I freaked. I was like, dude, we have enough crap going against us. We don't need a third person just randomly sitting in a tree just because you want to sit with us. It's not happening.
Going for you.
Eventually,
clearly
he convinced me to do whatever, and I gave him parameters. I was like, you're not going to be this close to us. You're going to be out of the way where we don't have to worry about wind, all this crap, and he comes with us. And Joey was adamant if Elway comes in, I'm not shooting him. And I was mad at him. I was like, dude, that's a deer that you got to kill. But at the same time, in my head, back of my head, I didn't believe that it was going to happen. Yeah, I didn't have the faith in myself that deer would come by. And we saw a lot. Like, and we also had a doe at like 20 yards that was right at first light. And I'm like, man, she just came in perfect. And we're watching her, and I'm hearing clunk, 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 clunk. And it's Warren trying to get set in his saddle and crap, and I'm like, I was livid.
Yeah. It was 20 minutes before light.
The doe standing right there. I'm like, every time he freaking moves, she hears it, and I was just mad because I'm like, this deer would just meander by if it wasn't for Ding Dong over here sounding like an elephant in a tree. So
it was 20 minutes before daylight.
She didn't bust. I don't know how, but
she did not.
Because I got wooed you.
Whatever. She meandered.
Wooed you.
You too. She meanders on, and we get a couple bucks to show up. They're fighting, smaller bucks, and I'm like, yo, I think that there's at least one of them's a shooter. And he looks, he's like, oh, heck yeah, I see antlers.
Yep.
We're good. I was like, oh, sweet.
Yep.
And November 2nd, I'm like, hopefully, I mean, they're going to town. Like, they're fighting each other pretty good. So I just threw the antlers together. I don't know what the benefit of when two deer are fighting to rattle at them. I was like, maybe one of them, when they break off, will come over.
They're
or
in the mood.
Another deer will come in, something like that. And sure enough, they stop fighting, like look at each other, and then just like beeline up the hill, the opposite direction. I'm like,
cool.
What? This makes zero sense. Like, they just got scared of it. And then I looked and I was like, oh, I don't think they got scared of that. And Joey was going, big buck. And I'm looking, I'm like,
big buck.
I couldn't even look through the binoculars before I was like, it's him. It is him, like right behind where they were fighting. So they looked at him, at Elway coming in, and they're like, yeah, no, I'm out. And dipped. They left. I was like, you got to be freaking kidding me. And so now I'm saying, Joey, it's Elway. It's not just a big buck. It's freaking Elway. He's like, well, meanwhile, 170-inch deer is making scrapes, standing on his hind legs, rubbing stuff, walking perfectly to us. And he goes, I stand by my decision on what I said last night. I'm not even going to grab my bow because I'm not shooting it. I'm like,
very diplomatic of you.
Oh, no.
The tone of voice there kind of tells you how he feels about it.
Could not. he teased us. He came in perfect. It was great footage. He stops at 15 yards. You didn't even have to stop him. Quartered away perfectly. And no idea we were there. I'm like looking at the different colorations on his antlers because I'm like, he's here.
It was awesome.
I would use the word
awesome.
It was something. And
that's what I told you in the stand. He was walking in. I was like,
he's chill as a cucumber over here, and I'm like tears in my eyes as this thing's rolling.
I was definitely shaking, but I was like, I'm not grabbing my bow. I said that to you. Like, I'm not grabbing my bow.
Freaking passed it, and the next text I get, like right when Elway finally gets out of here, I'm like, I don't know what to do now. Like, I can't believe that. That was like the first 30 minutes of light. I was like, now what? And the first text I pull up, and because I know it's Ding Dong probably texting me. He goes, that was him. That was Elway, and I don't think I've ever met anybody who's never killed a deer past a Boone and Crockett deer. I was like, yep. Yeah, me either. I got nothing to say to that one. No idea. He's like, you got a good friend on that one. I was like,
it was a thriller for me because you guys rattled at him, and I can't see
his story's
from
funny
it,
too.
And so they rattle at him, and I saw the buck come up, and so then he's coming over. I was like, oh yeah, it's gonna happen, because it was like a little 115, 20-inch deer. And then I was like, man, that deer looks a little bit bigger. And I kept looking, and I was like, I can't hardly move because I'm afraid Ethan's going to scream at me if he sees me halfway through the peripheral. And so I'm like, man, that deer's a lot bigger. And I pulled my binos and I was like, that is not the deer I thought it was. And he's coming right to him. I was like, it's freaking. And so then I'm not with you guys. So I'm like, is he going to shoot it? Is he not? Is he? And so when he's standing there, I'm like looking at Joey, seeing if he's gonna draw or do anything, and nope. But
sat tight. I sat tight.
That's pretty cool, man. Not many people do that for a friend.
No.
But then he gets to turn around and
that night
went back to where he shot the same doe at Dad's place, and
boom, and that was another. That was.
But I think it's the meaning of why you passed that deer. Out of respect to Easton, really, and then to go and shoot the deer that you did, and be just as happy about that one. As you would have been with Elway.
Absolutely fired up. Yeah, I was going to say that was the one thing that, maybe I should tell the story because, I feel like the way that I tell it is it was awesome. I stand on it and, anybody can look at me. They can point the finger and say, you are crazy, you are dumb.
Oh, I have.
They can call me every name, and you have, but, at the same time, it's it is what it is. It just felt right. I don't know how else to explain it other than that. I'm not about to...
there's something really unique though too and cool about getting to see big critters do their thing. When you don't have the pressure of shooting them.
Oh yeah.
It's
just soaking it in.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I didn't know he had party tricks and
yeah, he does have a party trick.
Yeah, he did.
Every
he got
time
up
we
on his
see him,
legs
he stands on his hind legs for a significant amount of time.
For a second, I didn't know he walked on 4. I thought for a second it was just 2.
It's like that shark movie.
We know who's responsible for all the friggin' Iowa Sasquatch sightings. People seeing that thing walking around. Yeah.
It was cool though.
He lived a lot of his life on 2 feet.
Yeah, he's the only one that's got scrapes 6.5 feet in the air.
I think it's intentional. I really do.
It's weird.
I don't know. I can't prove
because
it.
No one else can reach him.
I think that's the point.
Yeah.
I've never seen a deer do it so much.
Every trail camera picture, every trail cam video, every time we saw him, it was weird. But that night was a heck of a. You did everything right on that one.
Yeah, that was a fun.
Well, you guys now you got to be kind of on cloud 9.
Oh, absolutely.
With just the fact that you had the chance that day.
Yeah.
Now, maybe not.
Yes.
You might have a little.
I was still I definitely give him a lot of crap, but I was also very holy, we got him. We had him at 15 yards. Yes. I was I cannot. I told him so many times I never would have thought, I couldn't believe that we actually did. We moved that stand specifically for him, and it worked. I never could have believed it. I didn't believe in myself that much.
Yep. It was perfect, too.
Cool.
It didn't just work. It was dream scenario.
Yeah,
worked.
it really was.
But now you guys have climbed in one of my double bull blinds.
Yep.
And
yes, we did.
That was trippy as crap, too.
That was.
That was the first time we'd ever sat in one of the surround views.
Yeah.
And me and him get in, and we're like, man, this is weird. I was I feel exposed. I feel like I'm sitting here and can't I can see everything, but everything can see me. No, and I'm
it was weird.
I even think that if I remember right, one of the sets we did, I was like, Joey, move your arm around.
Yeah.
While I was outside,
yeah.
I was like, I really can't see it. This is great.
It was sweet.
Now I don't remember what we were doing. We were doing something at the house.
I think you guys were filming.
We were filming something.
You had already killed, and Warren had already killed. So you guys are filming some scenes and stuff for episodes.
Maybe we were doing recreate stuff.
Yeah, because Eli.
Is that what it was? Yeah, I know. Because
everybody was out there.
Yeah, but I just remember the thing that I saw is you guys coming up the driveway, and it's 30 minutes before dark. Mm-hmm. And I'm going, there's only one reason that you guys are coming back at that time of day.
Yeah.
And that was unbelievable. That was so cool.
That was a really cool moment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That one was the same field that he had previously shot his doe in, just a different part of it. Mm-hmm. Saw, I don't know, probably 6, 7 deer before he came in.
Yeah.
I mean, I think we knew that there's quite a few behind us, but they weren't coming in.
We had one almost walk into the blind.
Yeah, we had like a little yearling come like sniff the blind. Like 2 yards. You could hear it breathing. Yeah. That was really cool.
That was cool.
I like having him that close. Yeah, but we could hear him for probably 30 minutes, the buck.
Yep.
Whether he was like, I think I heard him grunt like 2 times or something. But I could also hear something walking constantly, and I could never see him. Then a doe would pop out in the field, and he freaking saw him. And I was like, I don't know about that, but you can go from there where you saw him.
Yeah, I was gonna say, it was right behind our blind, and you could just see like a smaller dead tree just getting it behind us in a creek,
and like 15 yards.
Yeah, like close, and I was like, oh my, like that's got to be.
A deer rubbing.
He turned around and said,
rubbing, like right there. And
he's
so
like, I'm pretty sure I don't think I'm crazy here, but I think that's a deer rubbing a tree. I was like, you're probably right. It's shaking. It's probably.
And it wasn't like another minute that I just looked one more time over my shoulder. And that was another one of those moments where I was scared because I forgot entirely what the blind was meant to do. Like I stopped moving. Like we both were just kind of looking at each other.
And when he looked at me, he was like, buck, shooter.
Yeah, I was like, shooter, buck. And he was right there, like 15, 20 yards away from us.
When he popped up, he had to have been even closer than what he was.
Yes, because right up the creek. And, I mean, he was just chasing a doe right out in front of us. And he walked right in. And
I thought I was going to have to, like, talk you through that. And I think I did.
I gave you attitude.
I don't think you listened.
Yeah, well, I looked back.
Not bad listen, but I think that you were so zoned and focused because I said something to you, and then I was talking to you after, and you're like, wait, you were talking to me?
Yeah.
I was like, no,
we watched we watched the footage back, and I feel bad because I gave you sass because you were, like, telling me that you're like, all right, you got it. And I was like, I know. I was like, oh, like, my bad.
He was in it. He was ready to roll.
Yeah, but, like, it was one of those things that, like, oh, man, it felt, that was the coolest, like, that was absolutely the most confident I've ever been hunting, like, in my life of just, I know that I'm going to kill this deer.
Yeah.
It was really cool. It was perfect.
Perfect shot.
Perfect shot, absolutely. And
20 yards.
that one didn't go, he might have covered 50 yards, but he was probably laying 30 yards from where you shot him.
Yeah.
I mean, he didn't go very far at all.
That was
he was
super
dead
cool.
in like 10 seconds.
I always think back to that moment. Like, it was probably one of my favorite moments of, like, after I'd shot. And it was just, like, I can still remember, like, just the feeling of us just sitting there waiting. It's just pure silence, and we're just waiting to hear him fall. Yeah, that's, like, one of my favorite things to look back on right there. Just, like, the moment that I knew.
So much chaos, yet it's so quiet.
Yep. And we've talked about it probably 100 times up to this point, especially, like, when we started to kind of reap the rewards of, like, all that we'd been doing in the summer. And you were like, isn't it kind of funny? Like, don't you almost feel crazy? Like, the amount of time you put in. We're sitting in a stand and we're looking at each other and we're like, man, we're just not seeing deer. And then it's like, it takes you 14 days to kill one, then 16 to 18 later. And then you're like, no, it was worth it.
20 seconds.
Yeah, for, like, just that small
or less than a minute. You
like,
go through months.
Yeah, I probably saw the buck I shot for, like, 2-3 minutes total or something like that. It felt like 30 seconds, but, like, it's probably just a couple minutes or so. Mm-hmm. But in that moment, I was like, all right, yeah, now I know why we did what we did when we did it.
But it makes sense in your head.
Yep.
I said, anybody that is looking at it from the outside, you're a psycho.
Yeah.
You're absolutely insane. You're going to spend 6 to 9 months, depending on what you do, to get ready for less than a minute. Or you're just a massive over prepper, one of the two, but I'll take it.
Yeah, it felt, yeah.
It's good, though. I mean, it brings people back year after year.
Mm-hmm.
It brings families together. It brings friends together. And it's, I don't know if it's all about that 20 seconds or 30 seconds, though, either. I think there's the Elway situations and
between.
And the friendships that you develop in a tree and the conversations and deer hunting's not even one that you get to do it as much as like duck hunters and stuff like that, where they get to visit and, but it's just, I think there's so much conversation that goes on with the wildlife, with being out there, that you don't even realize sometimes that you had that conversation. Like you're talking about the silence after, and everyone has something, some moment, something about what's happening that they can relate to, that it makes you just become ate up with it.
Yep.
That's the only way to describe it.
Yeah, there's some things that I just kind of noticed didn't need to be said to, like, be understood. Like, the moment where we finally had walked up on the buck, like, after the season that Easton and I had been having, and after that morning and it was like, I think maybe the only noise that was made for a little bit was, like, maybe somebody gave out, like, a little brief chuckle or something like that. Or just like, wow, like, it actually happened. And we had a moment. Correct me if I'm wrong, but, like, we were all standing around. And, like, no one really said anything, but, like, everybody was kind of sentimental.
Mm-hmm.
It was just one of those moments where, like, no one needed to say anything to each other, but I was like, all right, like, I immediately feel closer to every one of these people, like, in this moment, just because we're all just in it together.
Massive experience together.
Yeah,
especially when everybody was so invested in your hunt specifically.
Yeah.
It was like everybody was always texting, how'd it go? You guys see anything? You guys see anything?
Right. Yep.
But I think for me, I've always questioned, will I feel this way for other people? Mm-hmm. When you take your kids hunting, when you take your wife hunting, girlfriend hunting, or whoever, some significant person that is related to you.
Yep.
Man, there is a connection like no other. You're more nervous for them. You're more worried about them getting a shot. I think you experienced that by taking your friend. I know you probably deal with that with Alyssa. But
with Brett too.
Yeah, but will it happen when it's just someone else? They're a friend, but they're not like blood, or they're, and the answer is unequivocally yes, because you know what it feels like, and you want them to have that feeling. You don't want them to have to suffer through wounding an animal, losing an animal. You want them to get that, have that feeling of, I finally did it.
Yep.
And then especially in your guys' case, you guys had built up that what it's going to feel like, because you had spent enough time both prepping and then having to put in the days to hunt it. I almost feel bad for those people that get lucky enough. They go out on the first day and shoot one.
Yeah.
They don't. I mean, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. I'm just saying they got denied a little bit. But it won't happen if you keep hunting. It won't happen that way all the time.
Yeah,
very rarely.
So what would you say, Joey, would be the biggest takeaway for you as a new hunter from this season?
I'd say it'd probably be, I could probably sit here and if you gave me enough time, make a list. But off the top of my head, it's that you think that you're going to learn X, Y, Z and you'll be a great hunter. Like, and then it just doesn't stop. Like, I don't think, and Easton and I have talked about that, like, even towards the end of our season after I'd tagged out. And it's like, you know what? I just don't think I'll ever stop learning things. Like, you think that you know what a deer is going to do. Like, you think you have it figured out because now you've seen certain deer do this when they walk in like this, or when they're fired up like this, or anything like that. And then you're just going to keep learning. And I think that's, like, part of the fun in my head is, like, moving forward is, like, I'm going to go into next year, and I'm going to be excited about it. And I'm going to probably have some nights where I'm like, wow, that really sucked. Like, I thought that it was going to go a certain way, and it just didn't. But, like, I know that I'm better for it, if that makes sense. I think that's probably my biggest takeaway, is that I'm never going to stop learning as long as I'm hunting.
That's cool.
It's a good way to go about it.
That's a great answer.
Yep.
Yeah, and I think from the XYZ, I've been doing this for 50. I've been bow hunting for 35 years, I think, or something like that. I'm still not to X, Y, and Z. You know what I mean?
Enough.
You just keep going. Like you said, it just keeps going.
Yeah.
Every year. I mean, I would have told you 10 years ago that I thought I knew what I was doing deer hunting wise. 5 years ago, I would have told you, man, I'm really on these suckers. Last year, I would have told you, yeah, I got this done until October 25th. And then after that, okay, now they're teaching me stuff again. I mean, now we're putting in rub trees and we're doing this and we're doing, and look at this. We're focused on age. We're focused on different farms and it's never ending.
I don't think an XYZ for deer hunting exists.
I don't think
probably
so
not.
either.
It probably
the majority
doesn't.
of hunting.
Yeah, that's what I've said this again. I stand by it 100%. That when it comes to deer hunting, there's going to be like a few things that everybody agrees on. And after that, it is all up for discussion. Like most will agree on the wind, you know, and the deer move the majority of the time in the morning and the evening.
Yep.
And about those two things is
About it.
It's two different types of truths.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
You can claim ages and people argue that and you'll see something different. You can claim does versus bucks and then someone kills a doe that's got antlers, you know, so everything can be different.
That's just those dang liberals.
Right. Well, I mean, there's got to be a transgender in every walk of life, I guess.
Transgender.
Yeah.
Oh, there you go.
I didn't come up with that. I can't claim. Somebody commented on one of our TikToks.
That's pretty funny.
Yeah.
So anything that anyone wants to add?
No,
I think I mean, Joey, I just want to say, dude, that congratulations, and it couldn't have, I mean, we were pulling free. I can't tell you, it was almost like my own kid.
I appreciate that.
Easton, hats off to you, dude, because what you did for your friend and with your friend, most people your age just don't do it. I mean, and I'm not knocking people. I mean, I was your age at one point, and look, man, I'm killing my own stuff. Joe, you're gonna have to go on your own. I'll tell you, there's a tree and deer should come by there, but that's about it.
Yep.
And that's just the way life typically goes. So
Yeah.
what you guys experienced this year was something extraordinary, in my opinion. And so I appreciate you stopping by and sharing we've picked your brain, and then we've heard the stories, and it was just really, really cool.
Oh, I appreciate that. I honestly couldn't thank any of you enough. Like, I actually couldn't. Because like I said, when we started the podcast, like, I didn't know how I was ever really going to get into it. And, like, without, like, your guys' family, I wouldn't obviously be sitting here today talking about.
that's what's scary about it, is that there is such a high barrier of entry. That's why I really felt like it'd be cool to talk to you, just because your perspective is going to be so much different than ours is, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And when you do think about it in that way, like the intro to start bow hunting is
A lot.
there's a lot of things that go into
There's a lot of stuff you got to get, let alone learn how to use.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes. So I really do thank you guys, because I have stories now, like, that I could be sharing with people. And honestly, I would probably need them to tell me to shut up, because I have enough of them already, and I just got started. So
you'd hang around deer hunters, buddy, and there's plenty of storytelling.
And I love it. I'm here for it. So thank you guys. I really do appreciate it.
You're welcome for giving you an addiction.
Yes. Yes, you did.
Endless money pit.
Yes, sorry, Mom. Sorry.
All right, guys. So that's it. That's the end of the Raised Hunting Podcast. Thanks to Joey for being here. Again, we just want to reiterate, guys and gals, it depends on who's listening. Please send in your reviews. Reviews help us move the podcast along. Share with your friends. Let them know. And then if you're one of those people creeping on us, just go ahead and join. You know, we just want a full on. I'm going to follow this.
We want
podcast.
a commitment from you to subscribe to us.
Exactly. So, with that being said, it's hunting season still, because now predators are start. Easton's got a new rifle, and so you never know what we'll be into around here. All right, guys. Thanks for listening.